Hello. I hope you are having a good morning, afternoon, night, or whatever, wherever you are. I will try and keep things clear here, so I'm going to cut right to it. I'm Faye, an indie game developer, working on my game Tillandsia. As I'm going through the process of making this game, I'll be making little devlogs like these to explain how some features work and some of the design choices I make along the way. So, to kick us off with the very first devlog, I'm going to talk about how the procedural dungeon generation works in Tillandsia. To start, the mechanisms of the procedural generation was highly inspired from the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. There's a great deep dive into the construction of the PMD games and their dungeons in this video, and I'll leave a link to it in the description. I highly recommend that you check that out if you are making your own procedural system in a mystery dungeon style, or you're just curious as to how it works. But for Tillandsia specifically, there are 7 stages of dungeon generation: harmonographs, sectors, rooms, doors, cleanup, hallways, and stairs. A harmonograph is an image created by pendulums swinging at different frequencies to make different kinds of shapes. These things are really neat and can create some really cool images. In the world of Tillandsia, the number 9 is very significant and symbolizes completeness. There are 9 levels of spellcraft, and importantly for this devlog, 9 main floors in a dungeon. So each number, 1 through 9, is assigned its own harmonograph with increasing complexity. To start the dungeon process, a bitmap of a chosen size is drawn, carving out the shape of the harmonograph for the associated floor. This defines the allowed space for the room construction. Then the space is split up into different sectors. These are defined according to the class of corporeal magic in the dungeon, but I'll go over those details a little later. In this step, it also notes which sectors neighbor each other. With the sectors defined, the program will attempt to randomly create one rectangular room in each sector. If the room is fully allowed by the harmonograph, the full rectangle will be drawn. If the room is only partially allowed, only the allowed portions are drawn, creating interesting shaped rooms. If the room is entirely prohibited, the room will not be drawn at all. Once all the rooms are established, the procedure places doors around the edge of the room. It looks for neighboring rooms and places a door on the wall facing the neighbor. Eventually, these doors will be used to draw hallways, so each door is connected to a door in its neighboring room. Now, I could just make each door connect to the neighbor's door, which faces it, but I think that would create repetitive and boring dungeons. Instead, the door will choose a random, unbound door from its list of neighbors to connect to, so you get more interesting, winding hallways later down the line. Before we actually build the hallways, though, we have a little bit of cleaning up to do. At this point in the process, all the tiles within the harmonograph are still allowed, so before we start making hallways, we need to make tiles not in rooms considered unallowed, but that's a pretty easy process. Then, with the cleanup out the way, we can build our hallways. This was definitely the hardest part to code. I'll try and go over it briefly here, but to be honest, it's very dense. Anyways, the big complicated mess of words is that it first builds a distance-based cost field with a multi-source breadth-first search, then runs a direction-aware A-star pathfinding system with a Manhattan heuristic and turn penalties to carve each individual hallway. So, let's break that down a little bit. First, a multi-sourced breadth-first search just means that it starts at all the allowed tiles simultaneously, then looks at all the tiles around it, then looks at the next set of tiles around those, and then the next set around those, and so on and so on. This tells each tile how far away it is from an allowed tile. Then based on the base cost, a near cost, a constant decay, and a distance, each tile is assigned its own cost. The equation is as follows. The tile cost is equal to the base cost plus the near cost times the decay to the power of the distance found through the BFS. Essentially, this makes tiles near allowed tiles much more costly than tiles that are farther away from allowed tiles. So when carving actually happens, this creates a sort of semi-permeable buffer, so hallways aren't just directly drawn through the rooms, but instead have to be drawn around them. So with each tile assigned to a cost, the A-star pathfinding can work its magic. It starts at a door and looks at each tile next to it. It will determine a function f of n for each tile that is defined by g of n plus h of n. G of n is the total tile cost so far with the addition of any turning costs, and h of n is the Manhattan heuristic, which essentially determines how far away the door is from the current tile. Once the f of n function for each tile is found, it adds them to a priority queue, checks which tile has the lowest f of n, pops that tile from the list, and restarts the process on that new tile. It will then repeat this process until the door tile is popped from the priority list. The turn cost I mentioned before helps control how much the path will bend to get to its door. A larger turn cost increases the likelihood that the paths will be straight, while a lower turn cost makes the paths curvier. Okay, that was a lot and pretty dense, but we've made it to our final step. Lastly, after all the hallways are drawn, a set of stairs, which leads to the next floor, is placed randomly amongst the floor-adjacent walls of the dungeon. And one final note. The game has 12 classes of magic belonging to 3 categories: elemental, corporeal, and spiritual. The elemental classes are your standard fire, water, earth, and air. The corporeal classes are body, mind, extension, and transformation. And the spiritual classes are holy, demonic, order, and chaos. To keep things feeling unique and varied, each dungeon contains 1 class of magic from each category. The choice of magic changes the dungeon generation in some way. The elemental classes alter hallways, the corporeal classes alter sectors and rooms, and the spiritual classes alter spirals. This will be the topic of the next devlog, so you have that to look forward to. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this and found this interesting. This is my first time uploading this type of YouTube video, so I'll definitely have some improvements to make and would love to hear some comments, feedbacks, questions, or concerns if you have any. I'll do the normal YouTube shill of like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell for notifications of future devlogs and all that. And if you want to give Tillandsia a wish list on Steam, that would be super duper awesome and amazing, and I would love that so much. And also I made a little Patreon thing where you can support this project and play the up-to-date version of the demo if you find Tillandsia interesting. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll leave you with a little time lapse of sorts of the dungeon generation.